Welcome to Caregivers Haven podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping families who are caregivers of a loved one with a mental illness gain peace of mind. Even though this is a podcast focused on family caregivers of the mentally ill, much of the discussion can be helpful to any caregiver. Your host is Sandra, your caregiver nurse consultant who, as a family caregiver, shares her passion for helping others and her lived experiences as a caregiver to provide education, support, and resources to other families. Sandra is a registered nurse, and many of her guests are healthcare professionals. However, this is not a professional podcast, nor are we associated with any mental health counseling or medical doctor. Please seek help with the professional provider if needed.
Hello, caregivers. How are you? I'm excited to be here. I have not recorded an episode in 2 years because life happens. But I'm happy to be here today with some of my friends that I have met over the last 4 years since I've been on Instagram, and my sister, who's also my friend too. We're all here today. We are all caregivers, and we're just going to talk to you about something that I think is important that maybe a lot of other caregivers have had the same feelings about. But before that, I just want to ask, are you guys practicing self-care? I always ask you that because we always have to practice self-care. We cannot continue to be a caregiver. We have to take better care of ourselves so that we can take better care of those that we love. So hopefully all of you out there are doing that. And so I am Sandra Boyd. As most of you know, I'm a mental health caregiver coach. I do consulting and coaching for those who are taking care of a mental illness. It's kind of expanded to any caregivers, but I do coaching. I do speaking at workshops, and that's a little bit about me. So now we'll just go around and I'll have all of the other guests introduce themselves. So I see Alex, you're up first on my screen.
Yes, thank you so much, Sandra, to be on here. This is awesome. My name is Alexandria. I go by Alex Nicole Garza. I take care of my husband who suffered from a stroke back in 2017. That has left him hemiplegic, can't move the left side of his body. When I'm not caregiving, I run a digital advertising and marketing agency from home, so I'm really grateful for that. And I love to give back to the caregiving community. I also have an Instagram channel called Caregiver Talks, where I share all my little tips and tricks and my journey with my husband thus far. So I'm happy to be here, and thank you. I'm excited to be a part of this panel.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And then Nicole.
Greetings from Ottawa, Canada. So yes, my name is Nicole, and I'm the mother of a 17-year-old son, neurotypical, and a 15-year-old daughter with a intellectual disability caused by a rare genetic disease and an autism diagnosis. I am a self-care coach, and I work with parent caregivers, and I share the tools and strategies that are tried and true by myself.
Thank you. Trey?
Hello, everybody. My name is Trey Kearney. I'm a certified life and relationship coach. I help families heal through the devastation of infidelity. I am the mother of 3 sons, and my youngest, who is 14, was diagnosed with autism at 2 years old. He is nonverbal, and it is a really, really rewarding and struggle journey. So I'm excited to be here, and I thank you, Sandra, for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And Valerie?
Hi, Valerie Shaver. Hi, everybody. I am a hairstylist and a jewelry designer and candle maker. And I take care of my mom. And I moved here about almost 4 years ago. But it's been a journey since my earliest memory, because she's always had mental illness. So it's been a very, very long journey, and we're still on it. And yeah, a lot of days I'm thankful I'm here to care for her, but some days it's difficult.
And so so by the way, everyone, Valerie is my sister. You guys hear me talk about my baby sister, my little sister. This is my little sister. I have 2 sisters, and that's how I kind of get everyone to understand who's who. But in addition to my mom's mental illness, she also has dementia as well now, which is why my sister moved in with her. So All right. Thank you guys for that introduction. So, the reason that I wanted to do this today is because a couple of months ago, I woke up and I said, I don't feel like doing this today. I do not feel like being a caregiver today. And so I thought about it and I thought we should talk about this because I figured I'm probably not the only one who feels this way and that it would be great for us to have a conversation so that for other listeners out there, if you feel this way, hopefully we can give you some tips on how to deal with that. That morning when I felt like that, I just laid in the bed because before I started doing all of this work with self-healing and coaching and self-love, I would have felt so guilty. I would have just like tried to push that thought away. Oh my God, why would I say that? But that day I just laid there and I let myself feel the feeling because of course I love the person that I take care of. And I don't know that I said that earlier. I take care of someone with a loved one with a serious mental illness. I love my family member. I would never, ever, 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 ever not take care of them. So that guilt is a lie. Like I should not feel that guilty because if I don't feel like it, it could just be I'm tired or maybe I'm getting sick. So I just laid there and I let myself feel it. That was the first thing I did. And then after that, I just started thinking about what's going on in my life. Am I too tired? Like a lot of times when we feel that way, we've forgotten to take care of something. So I always talk about the 5 basics of self-care, which is nutrition, sleep, exercise, a mindfulness practice, and spirituality. And usually what I've come since because I let myself lay there and just feel it and think about it, usually something's off. We're off somewhere on our basics of self-care. And so yeah, I realized I was sleep deprived. I was tired. I was exhausted because I was taking care of my 3-year-old grandson who wears me out. And so that's where a lot of those feelings were coming from. And then the other thing is sometimes I don't share that I feel that way because taking care of someone with a serious mental illness is interesting because some people are like, well, what do you do? Because they see the person up walking around like, what do you do as a caregiver? And I'm going to tell you, there's a whole lot of paperwork that needs to be taken care of. There's a lot of doctor appointments, lab visits, pharmacy visits, coordinating with this person, that person, and then emotional support. And that's what people don't understand. When I got FMLA years ago when I was still working, that's literally what the doctor wrote on my paper, emotional support. So some people might see that and be like, what's that? What does that mean? But for someone who's taking care of someone with a serious mental illness, they understand what it means. The National Alliance of Mental Illness has a book out called On Pins and Needles. And that's because that's what most families feel like. They're living on pins and needles because things could be going fine. Things could be going fine for like 5 years. But the thing of it is, they're going fine because of what you're doing during the day. I spend my day trying to keep everything calm and quiet. Our world is loud and chaotic, but calm and quiet. I'm trying to assess at all times to prevent anything that's going to trigger a crisis, anything that's going to trigger some psychosis. And so it may not seem like a lot, but it's the same care. And that's what I'm hoping that other people who are not caregivers will understand from all of us today. And I chose all of you guys because we all have a different scenario as to who we take care of. And sometimes people are kind of judgmental about what we're doing or why we're doing what we're doing. And so caregiving is the same. The diagnosis, it does not matter. If you're taking care of someone, the diagnosis, like if you're a caregiver, you're a caregiver, and it's hard and it's busy. And it can be stressful if you don't have the right tools to help you through it. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's why I wanted to talk about this today. And so that day, after I laid there, I did not rush to get up. I just laid there and felt the way that I felt. And then I got up and did my devotion and just did some breathing. My sister and I talk about this all the time, the breathing, but I did some breathing and I got up and I got about my way. But I think I was able to make it past that because I just allowed myself to feel what I was feeling.
Mhm.
So let's just go around and Alex, have you ever felt like that?
Of course. And I think it's a different dynamic where sometimes I just want to be a wife. and not the caregiver wife, right? And this makes me super emotional just even thinking about it. But for me, I have learned, like one of the things that I think is so critical, I think, for caregivers is to get support, is to have the coach, is to be in a group, whether it be a prayer group or a coaching group or whatever that is. That has been a lifesaver for me. And really doing the mental work too, right? Because we're functioning as a caregiver, but then we also need to be functioning as a person in society, like in other realms. And so, when I've had those moments, you said something really powerful, and it was allowing yourself to feel the emotion, right? Usually it's easier to suppress it and to be like, no, I can't feel that. Well, I have to get this done. But just to take that second, sometimes just allowing ourselves to grieve or cry for like 5 minutes. And sometimes I will literally say that to myself, okay, I think I'm going to like cry for about 10 minutes. And then I'm like, it's a weird mental thing where I'll just be like, yeah, I'm just going to cry about this. I allow myself to have the feeling. And then I say, okay, because I often think too, like in my case, I don't think my husband wants to be in a bed.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yep.
Correct.
And I don't, in his perspective. So when I start thinking about his perspective, that puts me in check really quick. Like I can get up and walk around. I can function. I get to do things whenever I want. I can feed myself. So I think that it's a humbling that you have to be willing to be in, even in a place of giving.
Right.
So that's what I kind of do.
Can I just say something to Alex? I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Can I just say something to Alex?
Yes.
Because as caregivers, we feel like when I see parents that have two children on the spectrum, I kind of sort of shut my feelings down to say, how dare you complain, and you have one child on the spectrum. This woman has two children on the spectrum who are high on the autism spectrum, not functioning well, like their behavior problems. And one of my mentors had to tell me, that does not take away the fact that you're tired of being a caregiver, or that does not take away the fact of the severity of how you feel. That's their situation. So Alex, even though your husband is in the bed and he wishes that he could get up, your feelings are valid. And I've done that to myself for years. Like, how dare you complain? There's a person whose son is smearing poop on a wall, and you have a child. The only thing, he has some behaviors, but he just doesn't talk. So don't complain. So I don't want us to feel that way about ourselves, to not feel for ourselves, to say, I'm tired of doing this. I'm sick of being an autism mom. And there's some days I am sick of it. And I'm like, God, how long is this going to be for me? And I'll repent and say, God, forgive me. I didn't mean to complain, but God says to ask. So I don't want us as women and caregivers to say, well, somebody has it worse. Well, this might be your worst day. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because I don't want us to push our feelings down to say, well, look at my husband or look at my son. No, today, look at me. I'm tired and I don't feel like doing this mess. And I don't feel like dealing with this aggressive behavior out of nowhere, because I'm feeding him, I'm taking care of him, I'm doing all of this stuff. I'm burning essential oils, and I'm tired today. And I don't want anybody to say, well, at least or I don't want to tell myself that at least he's not doing, or at least you don't have 3 kids on the spectrum like Lisa. That's Lisa's situation, and I can be tired.
We all carried. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I do.
Thank you. All right, Nicole, what about you? Do you ever feel like that? Do you ever feel like you don't feel like doing it?
Oh, yes. But I think one of the biggest lessons learned on my journey has been the self-awareness. So, I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but it's really about being gentle with myself. So, for example, related to caregiving, and that we just had the very first Canadian Caregiving Summit in Ottawa. and I was speaker. And so 3 days I was on a high. There was networking, researchers, politicians. How can we create a national strategy for caregivers across Canada? It was like so impactful. 3 days. And then yesterday, I cried all day.
Mm.
And I woke up and I was like, be gentle, Nicole. It was just like, there was so much emotion from the 3 days of meeting caregivers and networking and hearing stories. And all I could do was allow myself to cry and talk myself through it and saying, your to-do list is going to wait and you're just going to be real gentle. And so I share that because it's very real. I'm like still trying to figure out, what did all those tears mean? And I may not know, but those days where I wake up and I'm just like, oh, that's right, this is my life. I'm gentle with myself. And I kind of like, okay, what can I do today that can comfort me? What can I do today for support? Whether it's reaching out to someone, whether it's writing in my journal, whether it's getting a little chocolate, whatever.
Or a lot
right?
of chocolate.
And so I think that's like, oh yeah, but I also have done the work, not completed, but have worked a lot on the shame and the guilt from feeling the anger and the resentment and the frustration to now saying, let's just not stay there as long. And that's what I really mark as progress on this journey.
Thank you.
On a good day.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in the end, something my sister and I talk about a lot, about, what if some of these things don't work. So, Trey?
Yes. Frustration is real with, and this is what I equated to a lot of the times. I have two older boys. I have a 29-year-old and a 23-year-old. And they used to get on my nerve as a mother. Like, I used to didn't like them sometimes. So when I'm frustrated and overwhelmed with being a caregiver because my son has special needs, I'm saying to myself, you was frustrated and overwhelmed when the other two boys had special needs too, because they needed stuff. And you weren't mad at yourself, right, Val? You weren't mad at yourself when you was mad at them or overwhelmed or frustrated as a mother. So why are you mad being a caregiver? Because even as moms, we're caregivers with our atypical kids. And I get frustrated sometimes with Jermaine's behaviors. Like, he was sitting on the couch before this, and I'm like, can you pick a place to go? I got something to do. And he knows. And he just sometimes, and I'm just looking at him and I'm just like, yo, dude, like, get out of here. And I just have to say to myself, it's okay. Because there were times when one of my mentors always talks to me, and her son is on the autism spectrum, and she has a nonprofit called Naissance Place, my support group. And people can go to naissanceplace.org. And one day he was going to climb at the park. Actually, it was my other support group. It was Genevieve. She has a support group too called My Goal. And we were at the park. We used to have these events at the park with the special needs kids. And all the kids were climbing, and I wouldn't let Jermaine climb. He was around 4. And she was like, I wouldn't let him climb high. She walked up to me and said, why are you doing that to him? And I said, because I don't want him to fall. She said, well, he could climb, he's going to fall. And she said to me, did you let your other boys climb? And I said, of course I did. She said, did they fall? And I said, yeah. She said, leave him alone. He's going to fall. Let him climb. She said, you're hindering him. So I just have to think to myself sometimes, when I get to the point where I'm frustrated and tired of being a caregiver, I've been tired of being a mom. I've been tired of being an entrepreneur. I've been tired of being a lot of things. So I get to be tired of being a special needs mom. And I get to ask God some days. Like, I have some angry conversations with God. Like, what can we fix something here? Can you just calm them down? I'm not saying I want you to take it away, but can you just calm them down? So I just want other people to know that when you are going through this, a lot of times, like Alex said, one of the key things I did was I found support to vent to. Like I could call my girl Nadine and be like, "Hey, this boy, somebody better come get me. Somebody better pick me up." So to have that support, to be able to talk to people, caregivers like yourself, and to just have people in my community that get it. Like you said, Sandra, a lot of people don't get mental health issues, but the people who go through it with you that know, they get it. So all of the autism moms that I call, they like, girl, go take a bath, go hide in the bathroom.
Yes.
Like Nicole said, go eat some chocolate in the closet. And like Alex said, go cry. And then pull yourself together. And it's okay that you don't want to do this anymore. So I just let go of the guilt and be like, you know what? I mean, sometimes I just don't like him as a little teenager. I just don't like him. And I'm like, okay. And he probably don't like me as a mom.
Correct.
I hadn't thought of that. That's really deep what you said about how, like, did you do this with your other kids? Like, why is it like, did I feel it when I was tired and sleepy, and like I have 4 kids, well, they're all adults now, but when they were getting on my nerves, did I feel guilty that they were saying that they were getting on my nerves? So yeah, there's a caveat there as a caregiver. So that's interesting. I'll have to think about that some more. All right, Miss Valerie, I'll try not to cry while you talk.
Okay. So as Renee can attest, I've been here almost 4 years.
I'm Renee, by the way.
I'm sorry, Sandra.
It's okay.
I've been here 4 years, and probably 4 times I called all my siblings and said, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. Y'all work it out. So yes, I feel like that quite often. I tried to promise myself which wasn't that long ago, when I had my I'm leaving fit, that you ain't leaving. Just next time, try not to call everybody, an alarm everybody. But it's a difficult trait when you talk about not liking, that person at that time. So it's been a really long struggle with my mom, with her being bipolar, from us being kids. And a lot of her ways gets on my last. That has nothing to do with her age or her having dementia. It's her, right? The bipolar. So now while I'm trying to care for her as a dementia patient, that bipolar still be popping. It still presents itself, right? So I'm trying to deal with her as she needs all these things, all this care. But sometimes the things she does, you say, I just really don't like this lady. Like, I just don't. Why is she my mom? You know what I mean? Why did I get her, Lord? So I go through just all of that. But at the end of the day, even though I don't like her a lot of times, she's my mama. And I do get a reward, give myself a reward for being here no matter what. Because a lot of days it's like I'm sure you guys can say this, it's a box of chocolates. So I'm in my room in the morning, and it's just so hard for me sometimes to open that door. I don't know what it's gonna be. I don't know, you know what I mean? But I gotta go out there at some point and face the day. And I thank God that I have a caregiver some days. And I just try to forge ahead every day, with her. Yeah.
So, all right. I'm sorry. Were you done? Were you still talking? I just want to say, so I made it through. I mean, I got teary-eyed. I did not boo-hoo, but my sister has made great strides from when she first went there till today. And everything that she said, like, we all feel that way, my siblings and all of us. And to take care of someone who's 82 with dementia is very difficult, because not only is it you're physically taking care of them, but you're watching this person transition from what you knew them as to something else. And that's been deep for all of us, like just watching the change. And then just like the everyday stuff. So you're trying to, take care of them.
I'm gonna interject. I did start therapy about a while back, but because part of it is having what you said before, having a place to let it out, right? I have 4 siblings, but I can't always tell them exactly how I feel because it's their mother. So then they don't, they take it as, how can you say that about mom? Or that was harsh or something, you know what I mean? So you do have to have a place where you can say, this is how I feel, and let it go, and there's no judgment, and yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Can I say something, Sandra?
Go ahead.
I know your mom is going through a phase of dementia, which is almost like going back to a childhood stage, right? So my son is 14, but he has the mentality, I think, like a 2-year-old. But what I had to do when I got Jermaine's diagnosis was I had to really, and I don't know if this will help you, to mourn the loss of the mom that you had to the mom who she is now, because I had to mourn the loss of the child that I thought I was bringing home from the hospital. Like I really had to go through a grieving process because I expected, I had the 10 toes and the 10 fingers and the eyes and the ears and everything looked good on the outside, even though he's good on the inside. But I expected him to throw a ball. I expected him to be the boy that I was going to get. And I got something different. And I had to really mourn the loss of the Jermaine that I thought I was getting, to let him have a rebirth of who he was, so that I could love on him the way that he deserved to be loved on, instead of harping on who I thought Jermaine was supposed to be. Like communication, we communicate through body language, through pecs, through picture exchange, through him taking me to the cabinet. And I had to let go of the child that I thought that would say mommy, and accept that him saying mommy is him walking up to me and taking my face, and or hugging me or pressing his forehead against mine, and for me to say, I know I love you too. So sometimes we have to mourn the loss of the person who's slipping away and try to accept the rebirth of the newborn mommy that's a 2-year-old. Because I know she driving you crazy acting like a 2-year-old, because he drive me crazy. I'm like, you know what? He poured all these bottles of water out on my rug in my room. Like I put water on my nightstand. It was 2 bottles of water. He poured them out. My rug got moldy. I had to pay $300 to Stanley Steamer. And I'm like, this is some 2-year-old mess. And that day, I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to spend the $300 that I didn't have, but the house was smelling moldy. I didn't know what else to do. And I did not want to deal with him anymore that day. But then I said to myself, you know what? He's a 2-year-old. This is what 2-year-olds do. So if that helps, I hope that helps.
Yeah. I want to say one more thing on piggyback on that. Because my mom is bipolar, I think that each of my siblings and I, at some point in our lives, I'm sure at different times, had to already mourn that. You know what I mean? Even before the dementia was part of it.
Not having the mom that,
yeah,
like we thought we would have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nicole, I know that you've talked about that too, about mourning your daughter. I think on the podcast, I can't remember because it was a while ago, you were talking about mourning. I remember you saying something about you had imagined, walking her down the aisle for her wedding, or her playing volleyball as you were feeding her as an infant. I don't know if do you remember that conversation?
You've got great. You remembered the sport, because I played varsity volleyball, and I was saying that Summer, we only knew something was wrong with Summer at her 12-month checkup. So that first year, and in Canada, we have maternity leave for a year. So you great memory. Yeah, I was nursing her the entire year. I was nursing her. I would just hold her in my arms and stare and dream, right? There was nothing else in her room to distract me, my thoughts. And yes, talking about intangible loss, Trey, exactly. The relationship I had dreamt of, all of those expectations, the dreams, and it is a lot. But once you become aware of it, and it shows up in different areas. And I think what's been so interesting is that we trick ourselves, I tricked myself. I'm like, check. Oh, I grieved that moment. And then like even now that she's 14 and she's a teenager, we'll go to the park. Like today's, and I'll see a group of teenagers there. And sometimes I'll just start crying or I'll tear up because I'll be like, oh, that's what 14-year-olds look like or do. And I'm at the park pushing her on the swing. And it's all good, but it's just that I say I'm a good surfer and I just ride the waves because you're never quite sure when the waves of emotion will come. But just knowing that they're there and going back to just being really, really gentle. But when we're able to grieve and mourn everything, I've also had to do a lot of mourning around the siblings. I can talk about Summer till I'm blue in the face, but Jordan is still a very raw wound and the very challenging childhood that he has had being his brother's big sister still is, emotional.
And Alex, I'm guessing you've probably gone through this as well because, we think of growing old with our spouses and traveling, or I don't know what kind of aspirations you guys probably have, but it was probably a similar grieving situation for you too.
Yes, I like that, Nicole. I think I'm going to use that, the surfer, the emotional surfer, because I'm trying to avoid going down an emotional roller coaster, even as I sit here listening to each of you. So, there's been lots of that. I just say it looks different now. That's the way that I've processed it. I'm like, okay, how can that look different? Like, okay, so maybe we just can't get up and like go somewhere like on a trip or whatever, because it's just really challenging. But what can we do? I'm a what is the word I said? Sometimes I'm hopelessly optimistic. And so I will kind of reframe the circumstance. And then the other times I'm like, okay, well, that just might not happen. And I just have come to peace with it. But it does. I do those cryings. And I have a strong faith in the Lord, like many of us here. And I really lean into that and say, okay, Lord, like you ultimately know. Mm-hmm. And so, but yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Cry a lot. And it's okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna talk about something, Val, that you said when you talked about going to therapy. So I want you to go into that a little bit more in just a second. But so when I talk about the 5 basics of self-care, when I said earlier, nutrition, exercise, sleep, mindfulness practice, and spirituality. So self-care, like being pampered, massages, pedicure, and all that. Those things are nice, but I always try to have my clients really think about those 5 basics, because to me, that's a foundation. Nutrition, sleep, exercise, mindfulness, and spirituality, that's going to keep me alive. That's what the self-care I need. I need what's going to keep me alive, what's going to keep me going. All those other things are nice to put on top, getting a manicure and pedicure, but those are going to help us like temporarily. The other 5. And so if we concentrate on those 5 things, it helps us to keep going. Now the mindfulness practices, I want to bring that up because my sister and I, we have this thing. So mindfulness practices includes like breathing, meditation, and anchoring. And so those things really, really help. But and all of the things that you guys said are going to help our listeners, so just so they can hear the things that you've tried and that have worked for you. But I just want to talk about, so what happens when that doesn't work? What happens when all that stuff doesn't work? And the reason I bring that up, because one day my sister was having a really bad day. And so just before we hung up, I said, okay, so go do some box breathing. And she said, girl, bye. Because, and I just want everybody to understand, sometimes that stuff, like you are too far gone that some box breathing or meditation or yoga is going to help. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're too, I guess it's okay for me to say this on, you're too pissed off, you're too sad, you're crying to it, whatever it is, you're too far gone for any of these 5 basics, for any of that breathing to help. And so what I want to say for that is 3 things. First of all, a mindfulness practice, so it's not a one and done thing. Someone can't teach you box breathing today, and then the next crisis you have, you do it, and it's going to work. That they call it, I'm guessing they call it practice for a reason. Those are things that you need to continuously practice, because what you're doing is you're trying to get your yeah, I guess I can explain it like this. Like our sympathetic nervous system, we're always in fight, flight, whatever. We're always in that. And so when we're doing those things that slow us down, we're trying to train our brain to get the parasympathetic nervous system to react, right? So to start slowing us down. But it's like Pavlov and the dog. Like the dog got trained to do that. So it's the same with us. We have to train our brain to know, oh, okay, she's trying to slow down. Let me help her calm down. So that's the first thing about that. And then the second thing is, if one thing doesn't work, try something else. If you try breathing and that didn't work, go pray. If that didn't help, try some sleep, go take a nap. Just try one of your other things. And then the most important thing, and Val, this is where I want to bring you in, is sometimes you need therapy and or medication. And I just want to throw that out there, because like in my culture, when I grew up, I didn't hear about anyone going to therapy or talking about a psychiatrist. Like that was like, you didn't talk, no one talked about that. And no one ever, and I never felt like it was taboo. It just never was talked about. And so I just want everyone listening to know it's okay. It's okay if you need a therapist. It's okay if you need medication. Um, don't try to do this all by yourself. And what I mean by that is, we have support groups and all that, but if you need that extra step for therapists and medication, please do not hesitate to get it, because sometimes that's what's needed. And I know that for my sister, I did see some calming. I saw a change once she went to therapy. So I just wanted to ask you, Val, do you feel like that was one of the biggest things that helped you, or were there other things?
I think it was probably the biggest, because at the time I started going, I was just so angry. I wanted to fight everybody. I was just angry at this person for that and that person for this. And I know it was just that I didn't know how I was going to handle it over here. My mother was still, when I first went, she was still active. So I couldn't, even though now I feel bad because she's so slow. Like, well, thank God. But so that's what made me go, because it was coming out and everywhere and everything. So it kind of just talking it out. And the therapist that I go to, I don't go as often. I only go once a month, but a lot of times she just let me talk. And I think after a while, she didn't interject too much, or she would just say, well, I understand how you could feel that way, that kind of therapist. But I think just every week, just being able to talk it out, tell her things about how I feel that I ain't told nobody else, you know what I mean? Or just a release of it. And then after I start feeling better, then we start talking about more like, I had to come to the conclusion with talking to her, there ain't really anything I could do about it. You know what I mean? So either you're gonna take it or not take it or leave it, but commit to taking care of your mom and know that these are all the things that comes with it. And it helped me to deal with my siblings. Sorry, sister. But that was a lot of in this taking care of my mother, deal with my siblings, because we were all pretty close, but this thing was getting in the way, of my relationships with them. But so all that just kind of helped me make a shift. And, somebody telling me that the thing that I just said that is so horrible, that it's okay to feel like that. So it helps with the guilt, because the guilt is horrible. And the therapist, I don't know much about her except for that she has a kid, a little baby. Well, maybe a toddler by now, but she would always say, Valerie, the things you're describing to me, I go through the same things every day, so it's the same thing like caring for a child. So she was like, so I can empathize with you, because even though it's, it's two different things, it's the same thing, of having to care for somebody. even though I do think, I don't know, because I do have a son, you guys, who is something. I don't know where he is. It's just something I carry with me. But I do think that I could be wrong, but when is your child, you have just that little bit of a different connection than when is your mom, you know? So I just think that that would give me, if my son was here, I'm sure I would feel all these ways, but I think I wouldn't I'm out of here like I do with my mom because it's my son.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Well, I'm not a therapist, but I can see a whole lot of things right there, like why that is, or what's going on there. You know, our mom is supposed to be our nurturer and our protector and things like that, and we didn't always have that. And so I think with your son, you know, you have that responsibility to be
For
that
him.
nurturer for him, to be that nurturer and that protector. So that's probably
I get that.
There is one word you said that I think. I can't remember the steps of grieving, and NAMI also has like these steps, but you said acceptance, and a lot of times that's where the healing begins, is when we accept it. And how Alex said earlier, we figure out, okay, I can't do this, but what can I do? Or this didn't turn out the way I thought it was, but what can it be? And I think that happens when people get to a place of acceptance, and it can take a long time. And I think it could change. I think we may be in acceptance and we might go back in a crisis or go back somewhere else. I think I don't think it's linear. And I know for me, I used to just sit and just sometimes stare at my family member and then just start crying, just overwhelmed with the just so like hurting so bad inside about what they're going through and their diagnosis.
Yes.
And I think after I came to acceptance, which, you know, of course I thought I was, you know, I'm an RN, I know all this stuff, I accepted it a long time ago, but no, I had not. You know. But then I started thinking, when I would start staring at him and thinking that, like, we would just be sitting and watching TV, and I started thinking about when he used to make me laugh, or I start thinking about other things. And you guys, I don't say who my family member is because they wish to remain anonymous. So I don't say who it is or what their diagnosis is. But I started changing those deep hurtful feelings into thinking about jokes that they used to say, or you know, or what have they done today that was good. I had to just start playing this game with myself and changing it. And as I came more into acceptance, that was very, very helpful for me. Thinking about, like, a lot of times I tell my client, try to focus on the good more than the negative. Otherwise, we just go down this spiral in this deep, dark, black hole, and you can become depressed if you stay there. You know, we have to, you know, I start my day off. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it, from Psalm 118:24. And what that does, it helps me I'm already telling myself, I'm rejoicing today. I don't know what's going to happen today or who's going to do what. I don't know, but I've made a decision about my day already, and it helps me. It helps me to, you know, make it through this journey of caregiving.
Yeah.
So I forgot to say early on that we are all caregivers, and if there have been any interruptions, it's because we're caregivers and our people are here with us. So if you heard any noises, or like Nicole had to get up and walk around, if you hear, we're caregivers. That's just real life. So does anybody else have anything they want to say?
You were talking about when it like doesn't, when like you're just kind of have a I'm losing it moment. Yeah, like I think too, like you were talking about having a therapist or that one person that you can call. I remember one day I was like working and my husband was like screaming and he was freaking out about food, food or something. And I was just like, for a moment there, I could feel the anxiety rising up in me. And so I just stopped And I literally called my brother-in-law and was like, could you come over here and bring a pizza? And it was like it's just like, it was really simple. And he was just like, oh yeah, he was really gracious. And he was like, yeah, but it was kind of an awkward moment because I wasn't like, I was just like, and I know he could tell by, I know he could tell by my voice that I didn't have the moment or the mental capacity to probably like explain exactly what I was feeling, but he was just like, okay. And I later told him that my anxiety level just went a little bit up, well, a lot up. And it was something very simple, but even in that simplicity, I wasn't quite able, like it just became too much. And even though it was a very simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I was just, afterwards, I was like, thank you so much. Like, I was just like, in that moment, I was so grateful. And so I think it's important, like, if you do have, maybe you don't always have to explain everything to that person, but they just kind of know, like, hey, can I put you on my speed dial in case, in case? And a side note on medications, I don't necessarily take medications, but I did look into supplements that could help with that, like calming. And like, there's a few that I found that just help with stress, that kind of help chill you out. So much so that even my husband, now he's able to take this supplement. We call it the chill pill. And I'm like, I have to take a chill pill. And he's like, I want one too. And it's just one of those things that we take. And then I'll just be like, okay, we're going to breathe. He's like, okay. And then one day I just stood there and thank God, I every day I thank God that I can work from home. But I just stood there and I said, and he kind of looked at me and I said, it was like the middle of the day. And I said, I'm going to go to bed. Are you okay? He's like, yeah. And I said, all right, so we'll eat something and then we'll just go to bed. And he was like, sure. And, he's pretty easygoing. So it worked out. But I gave myself permission to go to take a nap or go to bed right then and not feel like guilty that I wasn't being productive, that I didn't like change the world that day. And like Nicole, gently, like I love that word gently. That is such a great word because I think personally I can be very hard on myself. And then I'm just like, okay, I need to be gentle. So I'm going to borrow that. Gentleness. So yeah, I got to be gentle with myself that day and just take a rest. And then I was able to later on, be more productive and get things done. But I was just super grateful that I had enough, God gave me enough grace to just say, okay, we're going to stop right now. And there's a reason, so yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of medication for the autism moms, in our community, a lot of times medication for our kids is shunned on. So a lot of us are suffering in silence because we don't want that to be an option. For me, with all of this chaos that goes on sometimes with behaviors, I've always said too, I'm never going to put Jermaine on medication and I'm never going to put Jermaine in a home and all of these things. But as caregivers, we really just have to take it one day at a time because one day that might be my reality. Like I see autism moms who are being beaten, bitten, kicked, just abused. And I'm seeing some who can't handle it anymore. And their kids, I'm going to have a man soon. He's 14 now, but I'm going to have a man that I'm showering, and I'm wiping. Like I'm going to have a man. So my reality is he may need to go live in an assisted home. And that was just like in my mind, like I would never do that to my son. I'm a good mother. I would never give him medication. Now I'm just like, it's a possibility that one day we may have to cross that bridge when we come to it. But for now, this is what we're doing. And I use a lot of essential oils, Alex. Like I'm an essential oil addict I use oils.
Frankincense.
I use oils all the time. Yes, that's where we are now. But like you said, we might need a chill pill for Jermaine. Like we might need something else different. So and I don't want us as caregivers to be so fickle of feeling guilty that I'm not a good daughter as a caregiver, or I'm not a good mom because I'm going to an alternative thing that I said I would not do when he was 2. Now I'm dealing with a 14-year-old, size 9.5 foot, 135 pounds. I'm only 155, and we had a physical altercation. He ain't take me out, but I was tired after the struggle. I was like, oh my goodness, I better figure some things out now before he's 6'2" 200 pounds, because this is a man I'm going to be dealing with and his hormones are going crazy. But we have to be okay with being flexible with the changes that may come as caregivers. And I also was a caregiver for my mom who passed from breast cancer in 2005. And it's a whole different thing, but it's still a caregiver. So I had to make sure I was taking care of myself. And I never thought in a million years that when my mom passed that I would be a caregiver in 2009 when my son was born. So again, I just want to encourage caregivers to just take it one day at a time. And maybe one day you might have to take a chill pill. You might have to eat a whole box of chocolate. You might have to get you some edibles. Whatever it is, just on that day, be okay. Like Nicole said, be gentle with yourself and go take that chill pill.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Nicole, Valerie, either one of you have any final words?
I was just going to build on what Trey and Alex were saying as well. And one thing I tell myself is, or ask myself is, Nicole, what's the road of least resistance today? And because there you go, because I used to be absolute as well, Trey. I'll never, and I'm like, whoa. There's a lot of gray between black and white. There's a huge valley. And I am slowly allowing myself to figure out as I go. And so a perfect example is plan the day. Summer no longer uses PECs, but we write. So she's starting to print. So we'll do the day and we'll do the schedule. And so I'm going to do the next activity, and she's resistant. And then I'm the one who gets upset but the next thing is this. And then I'll have to check in like, Nicole, who cares? What is the path of least resistance right now? And it's so funny or silly, but humor is part of my coping mechanism where I'm like, chill, Nicole. And I just think when I constantly remind myself, what is the path of least resistance? Is it maybe not doing that? Is it saying no, or is it saying yes? Is it asking for help, or is it declining this? And then knowing that every day is a different day, and how you felt yesterday is not how I'll feel today. But yes, that would be, I guess, my closing words of wisdom for those listening.
Yeah. So this has turned out way better and deeper than I thought it would. Like I mean, I've had like tears literally almost the whole entire time, like just listening to all of us and all that we go through and how we're all making it. And that was the purpose of it. And for all of you listeners out there, I'm hoping that you're getting something out of this and that it's going to help you open up and talk about it and find support groups and not do this alone, not try to hide. And especially caregivers of the mentally ill. This summer, I spoke at NAMI, and there's a lady there. She told me that she's, I don't know if you guys see my post. I'm like advocating for mental health stigma, and she does too. And she said, caregivers of the mentally ill are in the closet. And I was like, I hadn't thought about that. She's like, yeah, they're in the closet. They're hiding. They don't want anyone to know because of stigma. So it's, they're in the closet. And that's not a good place to be, because trying to do this alone is going to be very, very difficult. So anybody listen out there, if you're in the closet, call me, go to a support group, do something, get some help. You can't do this alone. And then for all caregivers, all of us, none of us should do it alone. We should always get help, hold hands, sing kumbaya, whatever we have to do to keep each other going. My sister and I, we talk every day, several times a day, and I wish I could help her more than I can, because it's hard. It's very, very difficult. And I'm always the one who says, I'm never going to put anyone in a home. When my grandma was sick, she told me, please don't. But when I took care of my grandma, I was in my 40s, but now I'm in my 60s. And then my sister, even though she's my little sister, like, you're 62. So it's like
60 also. I'm not
also
60.
I mean, not all right. Don't be putting no numbers on you, huh? Sorry, you are 60 also. And so now, even though that's been my mantra my whole life, like, it is something that we have to start thinking about, because we're older. We might not be able to do this for the long run, but just so many things. I think the most important thing, though, is keeping the communication open and going, and support groups and therapy and just whatever it is we need, because it's not easy, and we all need to protect our mental health. Someone said something a few minutes ago, and I don't know what it was, but I was just thinking that I am hoping, with all of the mental health initiatives that are out, and how now they are teaching them about mental health in schools, and since things are getting better, I'm hoping that with the next generation, that they will be able to ask for help sooner than what we've all done. One day, my grandson, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. This is my 3-year-old. And he did like this, Grandma Nene. And I was like, here he is, he's calming me down. He was telling me to breathe. And my daughter does this little yoga thing with him every night before bed. So it wasn't like he was just doing it. He knows what it means. He's 3 years old. He knows that that's to calm yourself. And he was telling me to do it. And so I'm hoping that, because we're teaching them younger, that as they get older, it will help them. Like with us, we're in it, trying to figure it out. We're in it, trying to find out the tips. But hopefully with them, they will already know how to self-calm, self-love, self-care. They will already know how to do that. All right. Well, if no one else has anything else to say, I just want to thank you all. I'm really grateful for you being here. And actually, why don't you guys one more time let everyone know how they can get in touch with you? Nicole, you can go ahead.
NicoleDawes.com, DAUZ, are all my handles and my website. So check me out there.
For all of you Americans, Z is Z.
I like that though. Z. You can find me on Instagram at Caregiver Talks. Yeah, Caregiver Talks. Making sure. I'm also Alex Nicole Garza at alexnicolegarza.com.
I am all things at Trey Kearney, TrayKearney, and on TikTok, I'm at Trey Kearney 26. And I just wanted to say thank you to Nicole for what is the path of least resistance. That is about to be spray painted on this purple wall right here. I'm so serious. I'm about to get somebody to come, because that just freed my soul.
Nice. Valerie?
And I'm on Instagram at Valerie_Salon Soul, SalonSol, Salon Soul.
She did my hair for me.
I did.
But you can barely, I'm on this virtual background, so you can barely see it, and I have headphones on, but a little bit you can see.
Well, I do have something to add about that. Is that I say I design jewelry and I make candles. I'm not a full-time hairstylist anymore, because I take care of my mom. My jewelry and my candles are my hobbies. And a lot of days I get really resentful, because that's all I want to do. It's what I want to do. But I can't. So anyway, that's that on that. And it's gonna get better. We'll start all over. So yes.
Well, I hope that it has helped you. So I told her, all of you guys are coaches, and I wanted someone who is not in the coaching world to come in and share. And that's why I had my sister come, so that she could hear you guys. And I hope that this was helpful for you, Val.
Yes.
Meeting everyone. Okay.
And I hope I can help somebody.
Yes. Yeah. For all of the listeners out there. I'm sure you can, because you're not a coach, so it's just raw in how you feel. So I'm sure you help some people. All right, thank you guys, and we may have to do this again soon. I loved it. Thank you so much, and thank you all for listening. You can find me on Caregivers Haven on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. All right, thank you for listening. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
You can find Sandra on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Caregivers Haven. If you enjoy listening to Caregivers Haven podcast, please share, subscribe, follow, and favorite.